Over the years that I've run this channel, there's one question that I've been asked more than any other, and that is, what is the most valuable action figure in my collection? And I thought it would be a fun exercise today to compile a list of the 10 most expensive action figures that I have in the Analog Toys collection. But in order for me to put together an interesting list, I did have to set myself a few rules. The first rule is no graded toys, because I think grading is a huge scam and I don't have any graded toys in my collection anyway. The second rule was I had to stick to action figures and not play sets, vehicles, because that would just open up a can of worms that I'd never find the bottom of. The third rule was that I could only pick one action figure from each of the different toy lines that I collect. Otherwise, this list could end up having, 5 or 6 entries from Action Man or 5 or 6 entries from a Real American Hero, something like that. And the final rule is that I had to be able to find a comparable price through sold listings on eBay. So as an example, I know for certain that my Series 2 Whip Action Warhawk from the Coleco Rambo and the Force of Freedom toy line is easily the most valuable figure from that range that I have in my collection. But because I couldn't find a price comparison, he's not able to be included on this list. So let's check out the 10 most expensive action figures in the Analog Toys collection. Stay tuned.
Come with me, toy fans.
Hey toy fans, my name is Tony and welcome back to the Analog Toys YouTube channel. And kicking us off in the number 10 slot is Heavy Metal from the G.I. Joe A Real American Hero toy line. Heavy Metal is the driver of the Mauler tank, and all of the driver figures from the G.I. Joe toy line that came packed in with vehicles were produced in lower quantities than the standard carded issue figures, because the vehicles were produced in lower quantities than the figures, certainly more expensive vehicles like the motorized Mauler. This makes the figure far less common than other desirable action figures like Firefly and version 1 Storm Shadow, and he is also incredibly difficult to find with the original microphone included. The example that I have is an original action figure with file card with an original weapon but a reproduction microphone. I don't have the original microphone. But it just so happens that I found a corresponding sold listing on eBay that says that this original figure with the original weapon and file card but with a reproduction microphone sells for $114 US. The number 9 entry is going to take us all the way back to the 1970s Lone Ranger toy line. And this is the Vintage Marks Lone Ranger Lost Cavalry Patrol. This is not only one of the rarest Lone Ranger sets in the line, but also one of the most desirable. Because let's face it, it's a very beautiful outfit and an extremely iconic uniform from a period of American history that people are still fascinated by. It is very challenging to find a mint and complete Lost Cavalry Patrol. Often the flag is completely missing, there are numerous accessories, and the clothing fades and deteriorates over time. But if you can find a really nice example of the Lone Ranger Lost Cavalry Patrol, it can fetch up to $170 US. In the number 8 slot, we have a very late entry from the original Masters of the Universe toy line, and that is Ninja. Ninja is a very popular character because, hey, he's a ninja, everyone loves ninjas. But being a part of the later series Masters of the Universe, everything in those later waves is a lot harder to find than the early stuff from Masters of the Universe. He also comes with some soft goods and 3 accessories, so there are quite a few pieces that you need to acquire to be able to find a complete Ninja. And if you are looking to pick up one of these, a loose and complete example will fetch you somewhere in the region of $184 US. Obviously, the listing I have shown here is in Australian dollars, but all of the entries in this video I will convert whatever the currency is into US dollars, so they're all competing on a level playing field. At number 7, we're going to take a look back at the original Kenner Star Wars line. And here we have the second version of Yoda. I'm well aware that a lot of the last 17 action figures sell for a lot more money than this particular figure, but all of the last 17 action figures in my collection have come from Stan Solo. When it comes to the original figures that were released on either Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi card backs, and not on Power of the Force card backs, the most valuable, most expensive action figure that I have in my Star Wars collection is this rarer, darker green brown snake version of Yoda. I picked this up from Second Chance Toys in Marietta, Georgia on my recent trip to the United States, and I paid $200 for this action figure, probably the most I've ever paid for a loose Star Wars action figure. But looking at sold listings on eBay, this was actually quite a good deal, because a figure in the same kind of condition on that platform tends to sell for around $220. At number 6, we have an action figure from Mego's World's Greatest Superheroes line, and that is Conan the Barbarian, another action figure that I happened to pick up on my recent trip to the United States. One of the things that makes this action figure so valuable is that he was a later introduction to the line and was only produced for a short period of time, so he's more scarce than some of the other more popular characters in the range, but also because of the numerous accessories that he comes with. He has wrist gauntlets, 2 belts, a soft goods loincloth, a pair of boots, a sword and an axe. But if you can find a nice version of Conan, mint and complete, it could cost you up to $300 US. Now for number 5, we're taking a look at the original Kenner Adventures of Indiana Jones toy line, and I'm sure you can already guess the most valuable figure from that range, and that is Marion Ravenwood. Being a female action figure back in those days, Kenner knew that she was not going to sell as much as some of the male characters, particularly the character of Indiana Jones, so they produced her in lower quantities and short packed her in their shipping cases. It can be extremely challenging to find a nice minty Marion Ravenwood with a clean lace dress, the monkey accessory, good paint applications, and the plastic figure stand that plugs into her feet. But if you do find one that ticks all those boxes, it will cost you in excess of $340. The number 4 entry is the Bionic Bigfoot from the $6 Million Man toy line. This range was produced by Kenner, and most of the action figures in this line, from Steve Austin to Oscar Goldman to Maskatron, they all came with a generous amount of accessories. The Bionic Bigfoot is the exception to that rule. He has very limited articulation. I mean, you can't even turn his head. And he comes with a single accessory, which is the blow-apart chest panel that reveals some of his bionic circuitry underneath. Yet this character appeared in one of the most legendary $6 Million Man episodes ever to appear on television, which makes him an essential addition to any vintage Kenner $6 Million Man toy collection. But again, because he was produced in lower quantities than a lot of the other action figures, he's extremely difficult to find today. And when you do pick one up, complete with the chest panel, it can cost you $400. As we get closer to the top slot, the number 3 entry is from the Palitoy Action Force toy line, and that is Gaucho, a British recolor of the G.I. Joe Real American Hero action figure of Gung Ho. Gaucho commands a premium price on the secondary market because he is so incredibly rare. The only way to get this figure back in 1984 was if you purchased the Z-Force Command Center, which was also a UK recolor of the G.I. Joe headquarters playset. Yet for the British release, this playset came with 2 action figures, the other one being a UK recolor of Stalker, but the rarest and most desirable action figure is Gaucho. And if you want to add him to your collection, it can cost you as much as $445. In the number 2 slot, we have the first and only 1960s action figure on this list, and that is the G.I. Joe Marine Jungle Fighter. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous action figure uniform that comes with a ton of accessories, but the accessories are not all that particularly rare. He comes with an M16 that was packed in with a lot of other sets. The flamethrower came with the Australian Jungle Fighter. He wears the hat from the Australian Jungle Fighter. He's got some belt kit, a field telephone and some brown boots. But what makes this particular figure so desirable is the rarity of the actual uniform, the pants and the tunic with all of the woven badges included. And if you want to add the 1967 Marine Jungle Fighter to your collection, it could cost you as much as $700. Now before we reveal our top pick, let's take a look at an honourable mention, and that is my mint and complete G1 Optimus Prime. The reason this is an honourable mention and wasn't actually given a slot on this list is because I've never really been convinced that Transformers are action figures, and with this being a list of the 10 most expensive action figures in my collection, I didn't think he really qualified. I thought if I broke the rules and started doing Transformers, I could also break the rules and start talking about G.I. Joe vehicles or Star Wars vehicles and that kind of thing. But that said, a nice complete G1 Optimus Prime with the trailer and all the parts can run you as much as $480. And so coming in at number 1, we have the most expensive action figure in the Analog Toys collection. and that is the Action Man Space Explorer. This is a highly desirable piece because, well, it's colourful and gorgeous and it displays so well. But it was only produced for 1 year in the United Kingdom. And because it came with so many fragile, easy to break parts, they are really difficult to find complete today. The figure comes with a large injection molded plastic flight pack that clips onto his back, with a couple of pulley wheels at the top so he can slide down the flight line. And there is a long pickup arm with a grabbing claw at the end, so that when he's swinging down the flight line he can actually scoop up the camera. And this added a lot of play value to this quite exciting toy. I'm sure a lot of vintage Action Man collectors will agree with me when I say this is one of the ultimate holy grail items from this particular toy line. And if you want to add a nice complete example of the Action Man Space Explorer to your collection, this one is going to run you over $1,000. Current market value on this particular figure is $1,135 US. Fortunately, I bought this about 10 years ago. I didn't pay quite that much, but it's still, at the time, it was one of the most expensive action figures I had ever purchased. But I really don't care about the resale value because I don't sell my collectible toys. I'm in this hobby for fun, not for the investment, and for anyone looking to get into toy collecting, that is my advice to you guys. Don't chase toys thinking that you can sit on them for a little while and turn a quick buck later down the line. Just collect what you love. And I hope that you get some bargains along the way on your toy collecting journey. So thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, you can click the links up here to check out some of our other top 10 lists, or subscribe to the channel by clicking here, or consider supporting us on Patreon, where you'll get access to hours of exclusive content. I'm Tony from Analog Toys, and I'll see you in the next video.